Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the IWillAim Podcast. The topic for today is the Coffee Code. We'll have a good conversation with Marc Reed. Welcome.
Thank you, Will. Thank you for having me here. I'm really excited to be here, especially on the day of the drop, effectively, of the Coffee Code.
Yes, so if you want a copy of the book, it's available on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. I saw Mark's video last night, so go out and purchase it. Listen to our conversation too. Mark, let's start with tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Thanks. And I guess how the Coffee Code came about. So I grew up here in Los Angeles. I went to UCLA, graduated UCLA, and at the advice of my mentor at the time, I went to law school. Graduated law school with the hope of becoming a sports agent. And this idea or this opportunity to become a lecture agent and handle speaking engagements for top draw motivational presenters lent itself more easier for me. And so I started selling speakers to big corporations. And honestly, it's why I'm here today. It's what got me here. So it's just been a long, fun role. And along the way, I was able to find myself in a mentor role to my kids' friends. When my kids were in their early 20s, I was the go-to guy for those pep talks that I'm sure you've given hundreds of. I found myself giving hundreds and even thousands of, and liked it so much that I started speaking on college campuses and talking about life hacks and things that, I wish I knew when I was your age. And the notes for those speeches effectively became the Coffee Code.
Wow, impressive. Let's deep dive a little bit on the background. You talk about the background of Coffee Code. Let's deep dive the Coffee Code. There's multiple steps in the Coffee Code. Do you want to deep dive on a couple of them?
Sure. The Coffee Code, again, I think, and it's talking to people like yourself that make me really realize that these are life hacks. It's called the Coffee Code, and it's how a simple meeting over coffee can introduce you to a world of career opportunities. And in the Coffee Code, I stress to young people, to 22, 23-year-olds and grad students, the importance I feel of getting that coffee meeting with somebody versus an interview. And the coffee meeting is something that's a relaxed atmosphere where I'm identifying somebody at a company that I'd love to work at or that I know of, and I find that person on LinkedIn. I don't know them. I don't think that company has any job openings, but I just want some advice. I want to hear how that person got to where they are today. And so I'll reach out to people on LinkedIn and effectively, hey, I'm about to graduate from UCLA. I need some advice. Can I meet you for 5 minutes for coffee, in the basement of your office, right? At that local Starbucks near your office, as opposed to an interview, which is putting you in a box for 5 minutes for a specific role. And outside that door right there is somebody hoping you fail because they are the next interviewee, right? So the Coffee Code and the coffee meeting is a relaxed setting where you're able to talk to an individual, you're able to share your story with that individual. They may go back to their office and say, hey, we don't have a role for Marc Reed. We got to find one, though, before somebody else does. So effectively, that's what this is all about. It's going through the motions of what I feel are the most important steps for a college grad or a grad student right now. And it's creating your own brand. It's finding a mentor to help guide you through this process. And there will be many mentors along the way. I mean, I have many mentors in my life right now, and I'm sure you do as well.
Yes.
It's developing and building your network of connections, totally using LinkedIn. But it's not just the building of that network, it's staying in touch with those people for the long haul. Because somebody you meet on an airplane, somebody you meet in a line at Starbucks or at a job fair, they may not have something for you right now, or they may not have the perfect interest in you right now. But in 6 months, when you've had a new job or done something cool in school or had a different internship, you might have added something to your resume that piques their interest. So you build that network and you stay in touch with those people. Then next is developing your plan and working your plan. And then the last part of this game, or the last part of this Coffee Code, is to accept no and rejection as part of the game.
I think I wish I knew Coffee Code when I was a lot younger, right? I think
Yeah.
that conversation would probably definitely go a long way. What advice do you have for 20 to 23 years old? They're not that confident to reach out to people. What's your advice to them to take the first step? Because that's the hardest one, doing the outreach. Any advice?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And when I interview young people on college campuses like I've been doing lately, I find a lot of people have the same question you do, Will. And it's because some people will say to me, "Hey, Mark, I'm an introvert. I'm not good
Exactly.
at breaking the ice. What should I do?" And I think that there are ways that a young person can really test the waters, or get acclimated to being that person speaking one on one with somebody. And many of them are right in your backyard if you're in college right now, and it's job
Hmm.
fairs. Because a job fair is just a bunch of people from a bunch of companies, and they want to meet people. They want to know who you are, what you're all about, what your aspirations are, why you may be a good fit at their company. And yes, you can walk up to the various booths at a job fair and just listen, because it's great to be a listener. You need to
Yeah.
be a good listener in life, because people love to talk about themselves. But
Yes.
if you can look at a job fair as an amazing way to gain skills for yourself as a storyteller, as a speaker, as someone who can break the ice. I mean, look, let's picture ourselves at a job fair right now. There's probably 20 booths with different companies lined up, right? You walk over to one of them, you start talking to somebody, you say, "Oh my God, that went terrible." Okay, fine. Go to the next one. Now you're at the next one. You're talking to somebody, you're hearing about them, you're talking about yourself, you're saying, "Whoa, wait a sec. I'm starting to get this." Now you walk over to the third one. And by the third one or the fourth one or the fifth one, you've got something going. You now know what they want to hear. You know more about yourself. You're opening up your world from introvert into, "Hey man, here's who I am." And you realize that the difference between introvert and extrovert is just itty bitty. It's just minute. So, a lot of this may be mindset. This may be in your own mind saying, "I can't do this. I can't do this." You know what? Yeah, you sure can.
And I think the next question I had is, doing an outreach starts with an email, right? Normally not a phone call. How does a student craft an email that attract the attention of the reader?
Well, it's an email, yes. It's a message on LinkedIn.
Yes.
And as we all know, if we go onto LinkedIn today and we want to connect with somebody at a company
Yeah.
that's, in our target, right? We're only given a certain amount of words we can use
200.
in that invite.
Yeah.
So you've got to be really crafty and succinct in what you want to say. That's A. B, you can extend on LinkedIn and get I have LinkedIn Sales Navigator. And I was at a Hyatt meeting a few months ago, and Hyatt had, 500 salespeople in the audience. We were in Dallas, and they had hired a Salesforce executive
Ah.
to teach these people the importance of using of using LinkedIn, and it had to do with using LinkedIn Sales Navigator, because Sales Navigator gives you the ability to have a longer invite or discussion or message for people. I think that individuals, yes, they need to see that you're interested in their company.
Yes.
It's not some blanket, "Hi, I'm looking for a job. Can you help me?" No, I really want to work at Google. And there's a specific part of Google that excites me that I think I'd be perfect for. And here's why. Here's what I've done. Here's where I've worked at. Here's the internships I've had. Here's the studies that I've been a part of. Here's where I've traveled the world. This is why I'd be good for you. Can we discuss me? So it really needs to be tailored. I think Mark Cuban says it well, because Mark Cuban is known to be an individual who responds to all emails that he gets from anyone. And Mark Cuban says, "Hey, don't just tell me you want a job. Don't just tell me you want me to be your mentor. No, tell me why. Tell me what it is about you. And you got to do it quickly. I'm not going to read some long, dialogue of who you are and why. So it's got to be to the point now. And I do feel that, look, people you're sending these emails to, or people you're trying to connect with on LinkedIn, they're very busy. You can't get frustrated in the process. You have to understand that if you're at Penn State, the people at the University of Pennsylvania, the people at UCLA, the people at SC, the people at the University of Wisconsin, they all have the same goals and aspirations that you do. But there's going to be something different about you that's going to pique someone's interest. And you need to find what that is and share that with that person, because that's how you're going to get a leg up in this game.
I think I love the fact that you mentioned the why, because I remember in my career when I reach out and write an email to ask someone to be a mentor, I always said the why. Why should I be your mentee? And what do I look to learn from you, right? And then most of the time those are the one that you get ahead. So thank you for stating that. Among your coffee code, is there one code that's more important than the other?
Wow. I really think this is about relationships.
Mm.
And it's so the answer is no. There's not one code that's more important than the other. I think that if you look at so effectively the way the coffee code is built, it's these chapters or silos with life hacks or things I wish I knew when I was in my 20s. But what I do is I combine those with stories from some of my influencer clients, the speakers that I've utilized over the years booking this talent for corporate meetings, because I've seen so many of these speeches. And the cool thing about my business is when I book a speech, when I book a speaker, I typically will show up at that event. So I'll be backstage with Damon John or backstage with Mel Robbins or backstage with Magic Johnson, in addition to being able to watch these great speakers present. I'll be able to get friendly with these people and know more about what makes them tick. And so these are the stories that I like to share with young people. For instance, Magic Johnson, when he was retiring from the NBA, he wanted to go into business, but he wasn't a businessman.
Yes.
So what Magic did was very smart. He went to the ticket office people at the Forum, which is where the Lakers played at the time, before the Staples Center, before Crypto.com. And he asked them for a list of the people that sat in the courtside seats, because Magic knew that those were the titans of industry. And Magic wrote handwritten notes to each of those individuals, asking for a coffee meeting, asking for 5 minutes in their office where he could pick their brain, get some advice. He needed help. He needed people to tell him, hey, here's what you should be doing. Well, half of those people responded and said, come on in. 2 of them, in fact, are his current business partners on some of his billion-dollar deals. Well, what I stress to young people is the fact that you don't have to have a courtside like Magic Johnson. You don't have to be Magic Johnson. You have people that know you. They've known you for 20 years. They're rooting for your success. Those individuals become your first mentors. Those are your guides to this process. But it's the Magic Johnson story of how he started that helps to tell that.
I liked how you tell that story about Mike as someone's very popular and very successful as an athlete, being humble and asking other people for advice. And now you're able to translate to your situation. For your situation, you don't need to have that. And being able to relate that story makes people understand that I don't need to be Magic Johnson. And I think that's an amazing way of actually correlating that story.
Thanks, Will. That's
The
true.
book is a combination of storytelling and practical insights, right? When you first thought about writing the book, is that your original intention or that has evolved over time?
Yeah, I think that the importance of being a good storyteller is very, very important for young people to understand. When I meet with somebody, I know that I need to be able to share my story with them to get them interested in me. So this is really all about storytelling. There's a story that I like to share with young people. It's funny. It's a story that's typically I will tell at the end of my speeches. But when I met with a book agent a few years ago about this project, and told him this story. This was in Brooklyn, back in your neck of the woods. I was told that this story needs to be at the start of your book. And if I may share this story,
go ahead.
It's a fun kind of story. So the story takes place just over 10 years ago when my daughter Casey got into SC in the first place. And when Casey got into SC, she got into play tennis. And we live in Los Angeles, and Venus and Serena Williams were the inspirations for Casey to take up tennis in the first place. Well, what happened was I was friends with Andy Roddick, the tennis pros agent.
Wow.
And Andy's agent had said, "Hey, Mark, I know your daughter's about to go to college. Let me get you players' passes, coaches' passes for the Madrid Spain Open." Well, if you know tennis, you know that the Madrid Open is a clay court championship that takes place in the May time frame. It's next month. It leads into the French Open, and all the famous men and women that we recognize are playing in this tournament. So Casey and I said, yes, we're in, let's go. So here we are in Madrid. We've got these backstage players' passes. It's the day before the tournament's about to start. We want to see just how close our passes will get us. So we show up in the registration area of the tournament. And it's like walking into a large, almost like a Las Vegas style lobby of a hotel. Big open area, high ceilings with two staircases in the back where you can tell the players go up to have their massages and their lockers and their meals. Well, it's the day before the tournament and it's empty. There's no one around. I'm going, what the heck? But off in the corner, I see somebody that I recognize. I don't know him, but I recognize him. It's Richard Williams. It's Venus and Serena's father and their
Wow.
coach at the time. Well, I don't know Richard. Casey doesn't know Richard, but they're from LA and so are we. So, Richard, I'm Marc Reed. I'm from Los Angeles. This is my daughter, Casey. Casey just got into college to play tennis, and your daughters were her inspiration to play tennis in the first place. He says, hang on one second. Venus, Serena. So, at the top of that staircase, here's these two girls. Girls, come down. I want you to meet somebody. Well, the story doesn't end there because the next night, Venus had her opening round match against a girl from Madrid. And there wasn't anyone in the house in that stadium that was rooting for Venus Williams playing against a
You
local
guys.
girl except us. Well, we were sitting up there. We were sitting up, high in the rafters. Great shot. Nice serve. I mean, you knew where the roots for Venus were coming. It's from us. So the match ends. Venus beats the girl in straight sets. And if you watch tennis, you know that players typically will put all their stuff in their bags and zip up the bag
Yeah.
and go off in their own little exit. And, that's the end of the show, right? Well, Casey knew this. So as the match ends, everyone's leaving the stadium, coming up the stairs towards us. Casey goes down the stairs. I can't even see her anymore because I know she just wants to get as close as she can to her new friend to say congratulations. Well, now my eyes turn over to Venus, and I'm watching Venus as she zips up her bag and she looks up at me and she mouths the words, "Where's Casey?" Well, I was floored. And I'm
Wow.
getting
You
goosebumps thinking
remembered.
about it right now. But so I point, she's down there. I didn't know exactly where she was, but I knew the area she was. I see Venus get up and run over toward where Casey is. Now 5 minutes goes by. Seems like an eternity. Here comes Casey, tears coming down her eyes, holding Venus's tournament towel that you can't buy.
Wow.
So now we're leaving the stadium, and in the lobby of the stadium, once again, I see Richard Williams. And I tell him this story. Richard takes Casey and me in a group hug, and he says, Mark, if you had told me my daughter just played a great match, I would have said, thank you very much. That's her job. That's why she works out so hard every single day. But he says, a long time ago, I taught my daughters to touch one person in life, show them you care, share your gift, and look what can happen. And so this, to me, the Coffee Code is really about sharing your gift. It's about the fact that all of us have something inside of us, something that we can offer to others that don't have that. And yeah, it's about your success. It's about, buying a car, buying a house, doing whatever success looks like to you in life. But sharing your gift is something you can do today, you can do tomorrow, you can do 10, 20, 30 years from tomorrow. And so that to me was such a touching moment in my life that inspired me, when you think about it, to write this book to help others, because that's really what this is. This book to me is sharing my gift. I see myself as this conduit to the Mel Robbins and the Magic Johnsons, yes, of the world. And what a better way to share that than with a book that a young person can download today on Kindle, because I realize that's the way most of your younger viewers will read books these days.
Yes, definitely. So thank you
But
for sharing that story. It's really amazing, and I love the fact that that story also correlates you to this book. If you're sharing your gift to the people who actually would buy, would really encourage everyone to purchase this book and really read it and learn from Mark. If there's one takeaway from today's discussion on Coffee Code, what would be that one takeaway you have for your audience?
I think it's storytelling. I think it's the ability to know how to tell a story. I think that those of you who those of you who just heard that story about Venus and Casey will remember that story for a long time. Whenever you see a tennis match now, you'll think about Venus
I
and
will.
the Venus and Casey story. And the fact is, you were rooting for Casey. And I think that all of us need to have a story in our lives that we can tell that's maybe not as long as the Venus and Casey story, but it's something that you can leave with an interviewer. You can leave with a potential investor in your startup. You can leave with a business partner or whoever it is you're meeting with at a job fair, wherever that may take you. You want them to remember you. You want them to be rooting for you. You're trying to create raving fans out there. My friend Jesse Cole owns a baseball team, a minor league baseball team called the Savannah Bananas. Not sure if you
I know
follow.
it now. I saw it on news last week.
Okay. Okay. Well, the Savannah Bananas is just an unbelievable cultural phenom right
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
It's a minor league baseball team. They tour the country playing these games where they dance and they sing and they have rules that just are out of this world where a player hits a foul ball, somebody in the audience catches it, and you're out.
Yep.
But it goes so much deeper than that. And the Savannah Bananas thought process, or Jesse Cole's thought process, is to create raving fans. Do whatever you can to get people to believe in you and to back you. And so that's what the Bananas do. That's their culture. And so I think that if individuals realize that they don't have to be the Savannah Bananas, they just need to be themselves and create those fans that believe in them. That's really what this code is all about.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate you being my guest today. Really thank you, Mark, for your time.
Well, thank you, Will. Thanks for having me, and I love watching your podcast, and I'm so honored to have been a part of it.
You're welcome. Thank you very much again.
Thank you, sir.